For the last 3 years, we've been told AI would replace software developers. Companies invested tens of billions of dollars trying to make it happen, expecting smaller engineering teams, lower costs, and more software shipped than ever. But when the biggest companies actually tried it, something unexpected happened. According to MIT researchers, 95% of enterprise AI pilots failed to deliver measurable business value. Not because AI couldn't code, but because companies misunderstood what software engineering actually is. This mistake is already changing who gets hired, promoted, and left behind. One company made that contradiction impossible to ignore. Builder.ai became one of the biggest symbols of the AI boom. They promised businesses something irresistible: custom software built by autonomous AI, no development team required. The pitch worked. They raised hundreds of millions. Clients signed on. And for a while, nobody looked too closely at what was actually happening behind the scenes, until the company collapsed. When investigators went through the wreckage, reports revealed that much of the work marketed as AI was actually being done by around 700 human engineers based in India, quietly, behind the scenes. The AI wasn't doing the building, humans were. The product was real, the automation was not. But Builder.ai wasn't just one company's failure. It exposed a mistake the entire industry was making, confusing the appearance of automation with actual automation. Generating code is only one small part of building software. Understanding requirements, making trade-offs, reviewing changes, taking responsibility when something breaks, those were the parts that proved impossible to automate away. But Builder.ai wasn't an isolated failure. It was a preview of a much bigger miscalculation. The companies spending billions on AI accidentally ran the largest real-world experiment in software engineering history. If almost every enterprise pilot failed, the obvious conclusion seemed to be that AI simply wasn't good enough. But MIT found that the models weren't the biggest problem. The workflow was. Researchers called it the Gen AI divide. Imagine hiring a brilliant contractor who solves complex problems in minutes, but wakes up every morning with total amnesia. They forget your architecture, coding standards, and yesterday's bugs. Eventually, explaining the project becomes as expensive as the project itself. AI failed because companies expected it to think like an experienced teammate, when in reality, they built an assistant with no persistent memory and brittle workflows. But the most dangerous version of that gap wasn't theoretical. It happened at Google. At Google, engineers experimented with an internal AI agent featuring turbo mode, allowing it to execute commands without constant human confirmation to remove friction. Then, a routine command went wrong. The agent misinterpreted a cache clearing operation and permanently wiped a developer's entire drive. This wasn't a failure of intelligence, it was a failure of process. For decades, teams have built guardrails like code reviews and permission boundaries because every experienced engineer eventually makes mistakes. AI doesn't eliminate that reality, it accelerates it. Giving an autonomous agent unrestricted permissions is like handing a new intern the keys to your production servers on their first day. One mistake can undo years of work. The moment companies confused removing repetitive work with removing engineers, the experiment fell apart. But this failure didn't play out in a vacuum, and the people it hurt most weren't the ones anyone was watching. If AI struggled to replace experienced developers, why does it suddenly feel so much harder to break into software engineering? Because AI changed which companies were willing to hire. According to Stanford's Digital Economy Lab, workers aged 22 to 25 in the occupations most exposed to AI have seen employment fall by nearly 20% since 2022. Meanwhile, older, more experienced developers stayed employed, and some became even more valuable. Companies aren't eliminating engineering teams, they're quietly eliminating entry-level opportunities, believing fewer junior developers are needed now that AI can handle beginner work. It's like a ladder with the bottom rungs removed. Senior engineers are still climbing, but nobody new can get on. If companies stop investing in junior developers today, who is supposed to become the senior engineers 5 years from now? But those same companies are already getting their answer.
Here's what wasn't in the press releases. Forrester research surveyed business leaders and found that 55% of employers regret having made AI-driven staff cuts. Gartner projects that half of all companies that eliminated jobs for AI-related reasons will rehire for similar roles by 2027. And according to a Robert Half survey cited by CNBC, 32% of US hiring managers said they eliminated a role specifically because of AI, and later rehired for the exact same position. The reversals are already happening. IBM, which cut thousands of positions while betting on automation, later tripled entry-level hiring, with CEO Arvind Krishna stating AI productivity gains were creating room to expand engineering teams, not eliminate them. A 2025 study found 56% of CEOs said introducing AI hadn't produced any measurable cost or revenue benefits. These weren't outliers. They were the same executives who told investors automation would transform their margins. But the pattern goes beyond who got it wrong. It reveals exactly what software engineering has always been worth:
For years, we've asked if AI will replace software engineers, but the evidence suggests that's not happening. AI is only replacing the parts of software engineering easiest to automate: writing boilerplate, generating functions, and refactoring repetitive code. Those skills never made senior engineers valuable in the first place. Real value comes from designing architecture, finding security flaws, making trade-offs, and knowing when the AI is confidently wrong. In fact, a rigorous METR study found that experienced developers using early AI coding tools completed tasks 20% slower on average because verifying the output took longer than writing critical sections themselves. The market isn't rewarding people who can generate more code. It is rewarding people who can judge whether AI-generated code deserves to exist. And this isn't the first time a technology has forced an entire profession to redefine itself from the ground up. Every major technological shift raises the bar. Spreadsheets didn't replace accountants, and power tools didn't replace carpenters. They changed what expertise looked like. AI is doing the same thing to software engineering. The developers who thrive over the next decade won't be the ones trying to compete with AI. They'll be the ones who understand it well enough to know when it's wrong. AI didn't replace software developers. It replaced the easy path into becoming one. If you want to understand what that new path looks like, I made another video breaking down the next evolution of software engineering. Just click it, and I'll see you there.